Welcome back. We are on lesson 78. We are talking about products of square roots. And your objective is right here. Get it written down and we'll get started. Alright, this is just a quick reminder about the product property of square roots. And all that means is that I can take factors underneath a square root, so numbers I can multiply together, and break them apart. So the square root of a times b is the same as the square root of a times the square root of b. Okay, and that goes the other way too. So for example, I can take factors that are broken apart like this and rewrite them under one square root. So let's look at this. Okay, so for example, the square root of 48. I could break that apart into the square root of 16 times the square root of 3. Okay, because 16 times 3 gives me 48. They are both factors of 48. And again, the reason why that's good is to simplify the square roots. Now, I got a perfect square factor here. I can say that that's the same as the square root of 16 is 4 times, and the square root of 3 is simplified. Okay, but again, here's the property right here. The square root of this can be broken apart into two factors of 48 and put the square roots over them. Okay, likewise, if we got two square roots like this, okay, the square root of 5 times the square root of 6, we can combine those into one square root. So this is the same as the square root of 5 times 6, okay, which is equal to the square root of 30. And that property helps us simplify square roots. Okay, now let's apply that to a couple of new kinds of examples. Okay, example A. We got two square roots here that are broken apart, the square root of 3 times the square root of 12. So what we can do here is say this is the same as the square root of 3 times 12. Okay? Then we can use the factor tree method to go ahead and break this apart if we wanted to. So let's say we broke apart 12 into 3 times 4, with 3 as a prime number, and then this 3 is a prime number, and then 4 is 2 times 2. And now that we got this all broken down, we can write all these factors under one big square root. Okay, and again, least to greatest, so I know it's kind of hard to read here because of the writing, but this is 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. Okay, so 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. And then, of course, again, we circle our groups here. I got a group of 2's and a group of 3's, so that means I take one of the 2's times one of the 3's, and there's nothing left, so I don't need a square root part. So my answer is just 2 times 3, which is 6. Okay? Another way I could have done that is right here, okay, where I had the square root of 3 times 12, I could have said that that's equal to the square root and multiplied those together. 3 times 12 is 36. And I know the square root of 36 is 6. Okay, so I get the same answer either way. Again, factor tree method, or just multiplying them together and working it down. Now, for this one, okay, we're going to go ahead and again multiply these together to start with. So I'm going to take the square root of 42 times 24. Now on this method, since these are such big numbers, it's probably going to be best for us to go ahead and use the factor tree method, okay, to simplify these. So I'm going to go ahead and break apart 42 and 24. And 42 is 6 times 7, where 7 is a prime number. And then 6 is 2 times 3. Okay, and 24 we can break apart many ways, but let's do 3 times 8, because 3 is a prime number. And then 8 is 2 times 4. And then 4 is 2 times 2. And I love this factor tree method, especially when we have big numbers. Okay, where we don't want to multiply these two together and get a really big number and then try to break it apart. Okay, we want to break it apart right away like this. So now I've got all these prime numbers here to write underneath the big square root sign. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 2's. Okay, and then I've got 1, 2 3's. And then I've got a 7. So now, again, I'm going to scoot this up a little. I'm going to circle groups, or pairs. I got 2's, and I got another pair of 2's, and then I got a pair of 3's, and then I have a 7 left over. So my answer is going to be 2, so we take one of these 2's, times, and then one of those 2's, times one of these 3's, and then 7's left on its own, so that's going to be times the square root of 7. And then 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 3 is 12. So it's 12 times the square root of 7. All the way simplified. Alright, and let's move on to the next set of examples. Okay, in examples 2, parts A and B here. Okay, so now these look a little different. So we're going to talk about what to do when we've got a number outside a square root that's combined with these square roots. So we can only multiply numbers outside the square roots together if with other numbers that are outside the square roots. Okay, so if I look at this, 3 times the square root of 6 times the square root of 15, there's no number outside the square root right here. So I cannot multiply 3 by anything. So I'm just going to rewrite it. Times. Then I can take things that are underneath square roots and multiply those together. Okay, so I can take the square root of 6 times the square root of 15 and write that under one square root, like we just did on the last slide. Okay, so again, the number outside, there's nothing to multiply it by outside over here, so we just leave it and multiply, and then we combine the ones underneath one square root here. And now again, we're going to go ahead and use the factor tree to break this down. So I've got 2 times 3, and then 15 is 3 times 5. And now we'll rewrite this. We've got 3 times the square root of all those prime factors. So I've got 2 times 3 times 3 times 5. Okay, now again, we're looking for pairs. I've got a pair of 3's right here. Alright, so I'm going to rewrite this 3 and the times sign right here, and then I'm going to take out one of those 3's to multiply it by. Okay, so I had 3 on the outside already, times, now I'm pulling another 3 outside because there was a group of them. Then I've got 2 things left under the square root, so I'm going to multiply that times the square root of 2 times 5, which is 10. And now that I've got 2 numbers together on the outside of the square roots, I can multiply that together. 3 times 3 is 9 times the square root of 10. And that is simplified. Alright, now on B. Okay, on B we've got 5 times the square root of 3 times 2 times the square root of 27. Well, the very first thing we see is we've got numbers on the outside of the square roots. Okay, so we've got 5 times 2 that I can combine together. Okay, after we've multiplied 5 times 2, now we've got these numbers under the square roots, so we can combine those into one square root. So we're going to multiply this by the square root of 3 times 27. And we can go ahead and multiply this 5 times 2 right here, since it's both outside. So I'm going to make this 10 times the square root of 3 times 27. And now we've got to break down 27 using the factor tree method. So I'm going to circle the 3 because it's a prime number. And 27 is the same as 3 times 9. And we're going to circle the 3. And then 9 is the same as 3 times 3. Okay, so now I've got this 10 out here times all those prime factors that I've got underneath the square root here. So 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. And now I can go ahead and circle the pairs that we have. So now I've got 10 times, and we're going to pull out one of these 3's, times, and then one of these 3's, and we've got nothing left under the square root, so there's nothing under there anymore. Alright, so now I'm just going to multiply the numbers I have left. 10 times 3 is 30, And 30 times 3 is 90. So my answer is 90. And we cannot simplify that anymore. Alright, and that is all for lesson 78.
Happy homeworking, guys!
Thank you, Nia.